I don't think Kevin Durant, I know he seemed shocked. He was smiles, but I think he probably knew this was happening. There's no way his agent wasn't part of the discussions because part of this is going to be negotiating what KD's next deal is going to be. I think, yes, both teams did what they needed to do, but Houston, I think, came out better for this because they didn't have to give up as much as a lot of people thought they would have to, particularly when you see someone like Desmond Bain going for 5 first. Um, I mean, KD went for 1 first round pick in a pretty weak draft this year outside of the top two players and 5 second rounders, which we've joked about this before. Second rounders are nothing. The Rockets are likely going to buy back in, pay $1 million to some team.
On the day of the NBA Finals, we have a blockbuster trade. Kevin Durant has been dealt to the Houston Rockets. I am Justin Goodrum, joined by Allen Muenzler. How's it going, Allen?
It's going well. It's a quiet Sunday morning up until an hour or two ago.
Agreed. Before we get to reaction, want to read just the initial tweets from Shams Charania of ESPN. This is from his Twitter feed. It says, quote, the Phoenix Suns are trading two-time NBA Finals MVP Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in the 2025 draft, and 5 second-round picks, sources tell ESPN. The blockbuster trade is on the final day of the NBA season. The Suns engaged in deep conversations with Durant's finalists, Houston and Miami, over the last 24 hours and reached an agreement on a deal Sunday morning. And then here, just want to read Brett Siegel's tweet, just what he had to say of clutch points. I thought this was very relevant. He said that the Heat have been unwilling to surrender Khalil Ware in trade talks for Kevin Durant. League sources confirmed the clutch points. Their best offer stood with Andrew Wiggins in the 20th pick in this year's draft, handling the deal. Phoenix opted for the 10th pick package. So, Alan, take it away. What are your thoughts on this?
I think initial, Twitter sphere and all that it looks like a huge win for the Rockets. I think it's a great trade for the Rockets, particularly since they didn't have to give up their future Phoenix picks that they have, or any of their young talent outside of Jalen Green. I don't think it's a bad trade for the Suns either. I don't think the market was going to be huge for KD. Um, and the Suns had to do something. They were tied up with the inability to do nothing with a team that's unable to make the playoffs. Um, it's one thing to not make the playoffs and start on a minor rebuild. It's another thing to be the highest, the team with the highest salary in the NBA and do that. Um, so I think for Phoenix, it's a good trade. It gets them out of the KD trade. They can take a flyer on Jalen Green, build up his, see if they can kind of build him up enough to trade him for future assets, and he becomes the player they can trade for more assets if he performs well in Phoenix. From what I understand, Phoenix is not looking to move off of Jalen Green at the moment. They are planning to play him. Who knows what happens the rest of this, rest of this offseason, but I don't know, Justin. So I think from a Phoenix perspective, I think it's the trade they had to do. I think Miami's offer was very underwhelming. Um, I'm surprised though that they couldn't get any more of those future first round picks. So kudos to Raphael Stone for uh, holding tight with the offer he had and saying this is it. It's this or nothing. Houston didn't have to do anything. They could have run it back with the same team and waited till midseason to make any kind of moves, depending on how the season starts. So they kind of held all the cards here. From the Houston perspective, it gives them that scorer that they lacked, that fourth quarter guy who could put up points. I know there's an if KD can stay healthy. He's only averaged about 55 games over the last few seasons. I think Houston's deep enough to weather that. If he can be healthy for the playoffs, then I think they're in a good spot. And I don't think they're done. Um, I think they're going to take a swing at a player who right now I think has spent all of off season in Houston, um, practicing and training, and who is a restricted free agent, but they might be able to work something out with Raphael might be able to work something out with his old boss, Daryl Morey at the 76ers, because I don't think the 76ers really have a spot for Quentin Grimes. with Jared McCain coming back, and Tyrese, and they have the number 3 pick. Who knows what they do with that? Uh, so I think Houston might go for Quentin Grimes as kind of a uh, another guard. It just depends if Quentin wants to go back to kind of the backseat role, or if he really liked being the focus of an offense. In which case, he should go to look to sign it, like, I don't know, some really bad team. Um, so yeah.
Here's some other additional news. Kevin Durant found out about this. Oh, I'm sorry. um, Durant found out about this trade at Fanatics Fest, so was even given a phone call. He was up on stage with Taylor Rooks. This is like a big fan event that happens in New York the past 2 years. Has a bunch of people all over the sports world, and he was shocked. His expression on his face, he did not see this coming. We have a reaction from Sarah Jane DeMelli of Balls Life, a former guest on the show. Quote says, I would be lying if I read KD was traded for 5 first, had put my glasses on. This is a no-brainer trade for me. Houston didn't have to give up key players and only 1 first rounder. I love this trade actually. And then it says from Yosi Gohan. He is a NBA salary cap analyst. Early 2023, the Suns have Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and all their picks. 2025, the Suns have Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, no starting level center, few picks, and Bradley Beal. And then we have Stephen Cameron, who is former guest on the show, covers the Magic, says, man, did this trade need to be announced today as the same day as Game 7 of the NBA Finals? Now everyone's going to be talking about this KD trade instead of Game 7 of the Finals. Sucks, especially how amazing this series has been. It deserved its moment today and not to be overshadowed. And then Estefar Brahimi just had him on the show. Of the Athletic says, from the Rockets' point of view, still have control of Suns picks, got rid of Jalen Green's contract, kept Jabari and Şengün, Shepherd, etc. Still can make trades. Didn't take anything away from your elite defense. Found a source for a half-court offense unreal. And then last but not least, Zeta Keita, who just had her on the show recently, said, Rockets well done. Still have tons of young talent with KD to play with, including Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, and Alperen Şengün, a veteran point guard with Fred VanVleet, and hell, they even have enough assets, like you're saying, Allen, to make another move if they wanted to. So it seems like internet conjecture along our former guess is like basically the Rockets won this trade and the Suns came up short. Is that accurate in this?
Think, look, I am a firm believer that in most cases, both teams win trades. We've talked about this before,
Yes.
that they get what they want, what they're trying to do. And that's why I started off with the Phoenix analysis. Phoenix got what they needed to do. It certainly freed them up and set them up for their future. It's not a great future right now, but it was a worse future 24 hours ago. So they're in a better position. Houston is in a better position. They made a trade to compete right now in a crazy Western Conference, without sacrificing their future, which is insane. Yes, they had to give up Jalen Green, who has a lot of potential, but it's unrealized potential. His playoffs performance outside of the one game was not good. Did not give anybody confidence in his ability. When you had Şengün and Amen, Amen started off slow in the playoffs too. I know some people talk about that, but then as the playoffs went on and he got more comfortable, he became the best player in the series. So I think for the Rockets. So I think without sacrificing any of those guys, they still have Cam Whitmore, who barely got any playing time last year, has the same potential as Jalen Green. And they kept Reed Shepherd, who barely got time, but those last 3 games of the season where he started showed exactly what he could be with playing time. I mean, I think they still have to negotiate Fred VanVleet's contract, which I think there's probably already a deal in place. I don't think Kevin Durant, I know he seemed shocked. He was smiles, but I think he probably knew this was happening. There's no way his agent wasn't part of the discussions, because part of this is going to be negotiating what KD's next deal is going to be. Um, um, you know, he it it I think yes, both teams did what they needed to do, but Houston I think came out better for this because they didn't have to give up as much as a lot of people thought they would have to. Particularly when you see someone like Desmond Bain going for 5 first. Um, I mean, KD went for one first round pick in a pretty weak draft this year, outside of the top two players, um, and 5 second rounders, which we've joked about this before. Second rounders are nothing. The Rockets are likely going to buy back in, pay $1 million to some team, to some poverty franchise for a second round pick, and pick somebody this year if they want somebody, or they're going to do what they do every year, and they already have deals in place for the guys who don't get drafted to come into training camp and summer camp, and they'll pick somebody from that group. Um, so yeah, I think the Rockets still probably need to go out and find a third guard. That's where the Quentin Grimes things come in, but I think there's some people they could get cheaper than that who will be on the restricted or unrestricted free agency as well. So I think I think they're in a good position. I think also, Justin, they locked up Ime for a long-term contract, making him one of the highest paid coaches.
That's right.
They can thank the Knicks for that, I'm sure, but I don't think this trade happens if that is not the case. So I don't think Ime gives his stamp of approval for this unless he's locked up long term. Um, Ime was an assistant with the Brooklyn Nets when KD was there. So they have a history. Everyone who's ever played for Ime wants to continue to play for Ime. That's how he got the Boston job, because he was an assistant with the Olympic squad, and Tatum and Brown wanted him for their coach. Players want to play for Ime. The Rockets are in a good position. They've got a great practice facility. They've got a great city with great food and great entertainment. If you don't mind all the flooding, it's one of the best cities I think in the world. It's a diverse city. They've got a great coach. They've got a front office that does not care about spending money. They will buy all the assistant coaches, they're not cheap. Um, uh, so I think they're in a good spot. I think it was a good trade. I'm
We'll
excited.
have a lot more on this in future episodes of Hoopsology, and especially in the lab in the coming weeks. The draft is this week, so we'll have a lot more reaction in the next few weeks to this. That's going to wrap up our time. Hoopsology is available on all your podcasting platforms and on YouTube. If you disagree or agree or have any other comments, please email the show at hoopsologypod@gmail.com. Like and subscribe on this video. And again, follow us on all your favorite podcasting platforms, especially Spotify and Apple Podcasts. For Allen Muenzler, I am Justin Goodrum. Enjoy the NBA Finals Game 7 tonight if you're watching this on this Sunday. Thank you.
Later.